Good, blessed evening. Hi, today is Friday, and it is Friday Freedom Night with Pastor Ken. And Pastor Ken has asked that we all share of our testimony. And so today, here I am, ready to share my testimony with each and every one of you guys. Even though our testimony may bring up many emotions, I know thinking back on my life and just reflecting on the things that have taken place in my life, it has brought up a lot of emotions during this time. But I know that by sharing our testimony and sharing with others what we've gone through and how Christ has brought us out of it, it can maybe bring hope to somebody else. And so, my deepest prayer today is that somebody somewhere will be impacted by what I'm about to share. So it all started in 1982, December of 1982. I was born to my parents, Maria and Henry, and into a family of four. With it was my two parents, and then my brother Matthew and my brother Joseph. And my parents were heroin addicts. So um, early on, at a very young age, because of the choices that they made and the path that they decided to go down, it led us children to have to be um, adopted. And so, very early on, at a young age, I felt rejected from the very get go. And then, during this time, we were in foster care. And then we came to our parents, David and Christine, who were foster parents, and they did not want me and my two brothers to be separated. So they chose to keep us all together. And I'm so grateful that they decided to keep us all together. And see, when I think back to my childhood and I think back and think to different memories, I try to think of the good things and tell myself that the good always outweighs the bad, and it truly does. So the good memories that I have growing up, where my dad used to always take us camping, and I loved camping, and he would just always have me and my brothers out fishing, camping, doing outdoor things. Those were the funnest memories that I have. And then my mom, she would take us to the movies, me and my sister, and right before the movies, she would always buy us a Slim Jim and a pickle. And, these are just fun, good memories that I have. But then, as probably many of you, there are the bad memories. The things in which we wish would have never happened. The things, that you would think that you just wouldn't want to happen in your life. But those things, shape us and mold us into who we can become. I truly believe that. But it's all a mindset, and it's, what we choose to do with it. So, um, at a very young age, probably around 4 years old, because I can remember that my brothers were always at school, I was abused by a family member, sexually abused by a family member. And this went on for quite some time. And one day I was home alone or with my mom and her mom, my grandma, and the abuse had taken place. And I went and locked myself in my room, and my mom had come and asked me what was going on, what was wrong with me, why was I locking myself in the room. And I remember that was the first time I let my mom know what had happened. And so my mom, for a long time, for many years, didn't bring me around this family member. And then later in life, um, I began to be abused by another family member. And all of this just really made me feel just horrible about my self image, about who I was. And I really, really struggled. And so at 16 years old, I met a gentleman. And I really, really liked him. We became very close, and I shared my life with him. And I shared with him the things that I had experienced and the things that I had been going through, and expressed to him that I was tired. I didn't want it anymore. I wanted out. And so throughout this time, sometimes I would run away, and my parents used to think that, I'm sure they probably thought that I was, just a rebellious teenager. But I had asked my mom, that she not leave me home alone because of what was taking place and what would happen. And sometimes she wouldn't be home when I would get home from school, so I can remember that I ran away. And this in particular time that I ran away, I stayed gone about 3 or 4 days. And on the fourth day I received a message, because back then we used to have pagers. And I received a message on my pager, and it was from my dad. And my dad had told me, Mom shared with me what had happened. And, he talked to me and he said, I will ensure you that it won't happen again. So I was like, okay. So I came home, and, the family member who had been abusing me would still harass me and all these things. And so, um, my boyfriend at the time, he asked my parents to marry me, asked for my hand in marriage. And I was 17 years old, and my parents allowed me to get married. And so I moved out. um, I still went to high school. I still uh, had to work. I had to live the now married life and be responsible and do things as a responsible adult at 17 years old. I had to work, and life was, pretty good. I got through high school. I was no longer having to even be around the people who had abused me. Um, and I felt like I was living, the best life. And I graduated high school, and I felt like things were going really good with me and my husband. And then in 2005, we got married in 2001. And then in 2005, I was in a motorcycle accident. A car had hit me on my motorcycle. He wasn't paying attention. It was a man, an older man, who just wasn't paying attention, ran a stop sign, and completely sideswiped me on Highway 314 here in Los Lunas. And man, that was like a really hard time in my life, because I was in the hospital for over a month. Um, when I went into the hospital that day, they told me that they were going to have to amputate my leg. And so there I was, signing to amputate my leg. I can remember that my eyes were so full of tears, and that, I couldn't even really see the paper of what I was signing, but I signed. And 1 week later, I woke up and I lifted up my blankets, and lo and behold, I had my leg. And so, even though it wasn't the most beautiful sight, I had a leg. So here is one of, the many times in which I've seen God have his hand upon my life. He not only spared my leg, but he spared my life. And so it was during this time that I found out that, a lot of people would tell me that my husband was into drugs, but I didn't know that. I didn't know it. I didn't even know what drugs were. I had never even tried drugs. And so this, I came home in a wheelchair, and went from being independent, fully being capable of doing everything on my own, working and doing everything that an independent adult does, um, to being dependent. And there were times in which I would have to have help from my husband to put me in the shower, or to, help me get dressed. And there would be times where I'd be in the shower. Let me just explain. So I wasn't able to get my leg wet for a whole year because of the contraption or whatever they had on my leg to hold my leg together as it healed and pieced back together. For a whole year, I'd have to wrap my leg in plastic, stick it out the shower, and sit in a shower chair, and then take a shower like that. And during this time, um, I I I found out real quick, because my husband was always gone. I'd be yelling like, come help, I need you, and I'd be in the shower forever. And it just became real apparent that something was up. And even when I was in the hospital, I would see that, sometimes he was irritated and didn't want to be there. And it really affected me in a way. It really brought me down. And so during this time, I became a big time nagger. I don't even know how else to say it except for that I complained a lot, because I went from being independent to dependent, fully dependent on my husband to help me and family to help me. I couldn't drive. It was just a really hard time in my life. And one day my husband got up and left. And during this time, I believe that I drove him, to leave, but he went on a mission. And he stayed gone for like a month. And during this time, I went to my parents and they were like, "Well, just come back home, come move in, come back home." So I did. I went and I moved back home, and I thought, he would teach him a lesson and he would be like, "Okay, well, she's not messing around. I'll just come home." Well, he went home and he didn't want to be with me. He was like, "I'm not going to be with you. It's just ridiculous." And so we were, you know, he didn't want to be with me. I believe that he didn't want to be with me because I didn't want the life that he was living. And well, I mean, he knew that I didn't even know nothing about that life. He knew that I had never even done drugs, and he knew that, I he didn't want me to be a part of it either, in a sense, I believe, looking back, thinking on. And so he told me, "You know what, if you want to be together, then you're going to see the life, how I live." And during that time, I came home. We went back home. We had a beautiful home in Cypress Gardens. And he introduced me to meth. And I can remember that first night that I smoked meth with him. There were so many people there that I didn't even never even knew that any of these people did drugs. It was not very long that I found out that most of my neighbors were into drugs. Most of my neighbors were, you know, yeah, they were in the scene, and I never even knew. And we went on to do that for about a year, and or maybe not even a year, but during this time, I realized that this wasn't even the life for me. Like, I didn't even like it. I didn't like being in another state of mind. I didn't like not having control of my emotions and the way that I felt. And so I told him, like, this got to stop. I didn't like hustling. I was always a hard worker. My parents taught me to be a hard worker. And I just didn't like it. It just wasn't for me. And so um, we started to break. So we split up, and I left the house. And you know, me and him were back and forth, on and off, on and off, um, getting back together. And one of the times that we broke up, the last time that we broke up, um, we got in this huge fight. I don't even remember over what, but we got in a big fight. And I remember I left. And because of the motorcycle accident, I used to get pain medicine. And so I spent that whole year in a wheelchair, learned how to walk again. It was around the time that I was learning how to walk again that all this took place with my, I was, barely learning how to walk again. All this took place with my husband, and he left and went on that mission, and we got back together. And after that, we got in that big fight, and I left from his house. And I remember I picked up a fifth of vodka and a fresh bottle of painkillers, and I drove home and to my parents' house. And when I drove there, I thought, I just am so tired. I'm done with this life. I'm over this life. And I tried to take my life. I drank all 30 pills and slammed that fifth of vodka, and I went and sat in my nephew's room with a plate of food, and I guess I must have nodded out into the food, and he noticed that I was barely breathing. I had shallow breathing, so he started screaming, and he was calling for my parents, um, you know, saying, "Come help, 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 Auntie April, something's wrong with Auntie April." And so my dad came in, and I was completely out of it. So this is what my parents shared with me. My dad came in and he tried to resuscitate me. They called 911. The ambulance came. They gave me something for the overdose, and then I was rushed to the hospital and stayed in the hospital for a couple of days. When I came out of the hospital, my dad sat me down, and during this time, I had a whole lot of time to think and reflect on everything that had been going on. And just seeing how my life was spiraling out of control, and how everything was just falling apart, and I everything was unfolding before my eyes. My entire world got flipped upside down. And my dad told me, April, your life is far more precious than, to be ending it like this and to be ending it over a man. Um, there's, this isn't right. You need to figure yourself out, and you need to make a decision, and you need to move on with your life. If he's, not willing to give up that lifestyle, and you don't want a part of that lifestyle, then you need to do what you need to do to take care of you. And he cried, and I cried, and he was right. And so I made the decision to get a divorce. In 2007, I divorced my husband, and then. I got my own house. I was working, and everything was going good. I did, life was great. And then 2 years later, I met my now husband, Onesimo Maribal, who is Pastor Ness at Freedom Worship Center. And, this was before he became a pastor. I met him and I would invite him to church, and he decided that, yeah, he would go to church with me. And so we would go to church, but we would still have one foot in the world and one foot with God. It was like we wanted the best of both worlds. So during this time, we had, of course, a lot of chaos, a lot of havoc, and um, our marriage was rough that first year. We had my son Onesimo, and in that first year, um, my husband and I got into a domestic, and my husband went to jail. And then um, he went to counseling and anger management classes, and then it was just a really rough time. And then it wasn't until, you know, Onesimo and I decided that enough was enough. We needed to really fully surrender our lives to Christ. And we fully surrendered our life to Christ, the two of us, taking both feet out of the world and saying, you know what, um, we have to make change. And together, as the Spirit worked in and through both of our lives, we came to Christ and fully just started serving unto the Lord. And we had our second son, Damien. Our, enduring light of Yahweh is what the meaning of his name is. And we bought our beautiful home in Los Lunas. So we had lived in Belen, and I had dreamed of, living in Los Lunas and having a bigger home and having, more children and just having a bigger family. Well, the first year that we moved into our beautiful home, things were going good. The Lord had called me to fasting and prayer, and I didn't know why the Lord had called me into fasting. During this time of fasting, I had spiritual dreams. I had a dream that, one time that a demon was trying to, come into a home that we had been in, and this was just a dream. And so I didn't understand what that dream was at the time, but I truly believe how the Word of God says that what's done in dark will always be brought to light. And um, as hard as it is to talk about, um, once again, here came the enemy to kill, to steal, to destroy everything because our life had been so good. And my the enemy came, and I caught a family member um, trying to abuse my son. So here we are again, you know, having to go through one of life's circumstances, one of life's, something that you wish would never happen. And so during this time, I asked God, I'm like, we're faithful followers of you. We fully serve you. Our whole entire life is dedicated to serving you. How could you allow this to happen? First, me as a child, and then, having to deal with the rejection of my parents since birth, then the rejection of my husband, and both my parents and my husband having to choose drugs over me. Um, and now my son, and we still faithfully served, and we still did the things of the Lord, and as the Lord led, and we still went to church, and we still did everything we needed to do. And it was during that time that I truly believe the reason God had me fasting and in prayer was because of what he revealed to me, because he brought the dark to light, and he showed me that, um so that I could protect my children. And apparently the generational, of the generations of abuse that had taken place, needed to stop somewheres. And so I had to be the generational um, curse breaker. And so I chose, to separate our families. And it was a hard choice to make, because here we are, Christian followers of Christ, and people don't understand. They think and they say, well, you're a Christian, you're to forgive, and you're to do this, and you're to do that. And they don't understand and can't wrap their minds around the fact that yes, you can forgive, but it doesn't mean that you have to sit at the table of the people who have abused you, or fellowship with them, or commune with them, or whatever you may call it. You don't have to be with them. And so I chose to forgive and to move forward with my life, protecting my children and separating my children from that life. um, and from those certain family members, because nothing had ever changed. Nobody ever got help. Nobody ever addressed the situation. And so I believe that you can forgive, but you can love at a distance. And when I say that, I mean that you can forgive and say, you know what, I'm going to pray for you. And if I don't wish ill upon you, and I don't wish bad upon you, but for the protection of my children, the 4 children that God has blessed me with, I'm going to put a boundary. And we have to have those healthy boundaries. As hard as it may be, sometimes we have to do those things. And so, um, to testify of how I know that I truly walk in forgiveness is, so about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe, the first family member who had abused me, the family had called me and asked me, and not the entire family knew about this abuse. Remember, it's, everything's always, I believe in families, sometimes hush hush. But one family member called me and asked me if I would go pray over this person because they were dying. And so I called my husband and I was like, babe, we've been asked to go pray. And he's like, are you okay? Well, we'll go. Are you okay? And I'm like, the flesh in me is not okay. The flesh doesn't want to, forgive. The flesh doesn't want, the flesh wants to pay back. But the Spirit of God within me says, I have to go pray. I have to go do this, because we are to shine the light of Jesus always. And what better way to shine Jesus than to be able to sit in the presence of your enemies and pray for them? So, or in the presence of those who have wronged you and hurt you and abused you. And so we went and we prayed and we asked him if he had received Jesus Christ and if he has asked his forgiveness and all of that. And then later, fast forward, my father, who had raised me, my dad, David, he passed away. And I hadn't had to be around any family members that had abused me in years. And the one that, the one that I had caught abusing my son, I hadn't had to be around him either. And so this was the first time, and I knew that I was going to have to. So when I got the phone call that dad had just passed away, he was in the hospital, I rushed to the hospital. And on the way over there, I just asked the Spirit to give me strength. And we were in the hospital room in front of my dad. He had just passed, and there's all the family together. And so, me being, the Christian, I grabbed everybody's hand and I just prayed for everybody and prayed for peace and prayed for, strength, and just did as the Lord led in that moment. And so, um, those are 2 times in which I know um, that I needed to do what I had to do at those moments. And we, like I said, it just, it's the forgiveness that we have. The flesh can't do it on its own, but because of the Spirit of God, we are able to do far more exceedingly abundantly anything we could ever do on our own. Amen. So the Spirit will lead us. And so, you know, um, during that time with when that had happened to my son, I asked God where he was, and why this all had to happen. And we're faithful servants, Lord, why us? And I questioned him, and he told me, I'm with you, I've never left you. And I didn't he revealed to me that it's not that God is the one who causes these things to happen, but and it's not that he doesn't cover us and protect us, but we do live in a world with sick people who are, we live in a world of darkness where the enemy roams around seeking who he can devour. He is always on prowl. He, my biggest fear in life, my biggest worry in life was just that, was somebody to hurt my child. And when it happened, it just really, really took me for sideswipe me. But during, God did reveal to me that he's there and he covers me and he protects me, but I also have to create boundaries. And he showed me what, you know the darkness, so that it could be brought to light, so that I could protect my family. And that's what I choose to do. And so even though there have been many tough things that have taken place in my life, I have seen God move mountains. I have seen God work in many areas of my life. Even though I had to endure the things that I did as a child, and the trials that still happen. I know that they are just things that are stepping stones to excel me to be the woman that God has created me to be. And I can either allow those things that have those moments in which I've been hurt and harmed, and I can allow them to leave me down in the pit, or I can allow them to help me rise above. And I choose to be victorious. And so I choose to rise above and not be a victim, but a victor through everything that has taken place in my life. And that is why I am who I am today, and why I fully serve God, because I have seen his hand in and through my life, and I see the evidence of his goodness all around me, and all upon my life. And so 2 years ago, um, I yet again had such a hard time. For many of you guys who know me know that I have my brother Joseph, and I have the Joseph's ministry, from the pits to the palace. My brother is in, this is the ministry that is in memory of my brother Joseph. He shared with me that he wished that he could make an impact on the streets. He knew that he had a big influence on the streets, and he wished that he could turn it around for the kingdom of God. And so that's what I'm doing on behalf of Joseph, in memory of Joseph, is reaching those who struggle on the streets. And so my brother Joseph is one who, as you know, it was three of us, me, Matthew, Joseph. We're the three that have gone through so much in this life. And I would pray for Joseph all the time, and pray for his deliverance, and ask God if he could deliver him out of the bondage of drug addiction. But my brother, he lived in the past. And I'm praying that if any of you guys are out there and you live in the past, and you're stuck on your past and the things that have happened to you and wronged you and hurt you, that you're able to heal from that. Because my brother, he couldn't, and he was stuck in the past. And because he was stuck in the past, I believe it led him to try and to be addicted, and to be um, a part of that. And so of that world. And so I my brother was called home. I lost my brother to the battle of addiction. And this was another hard time in my life. And I truly believe that the enemy thought he was going to take me out. He thought, this is going to do it, because when he can't hurt you straight on, he goes to your family, and he goes to the ones that you love, to try to get to you, to try to bring you down, to try to take your focus off of the Lord and what the Lord is doing. But Satan has no hold on me, and he's not going to take my eyes off of Christ. I know who God is, and God reigns forever. And, even though I lost my brother, I believe sometimes our healing is heaven. And where we suffer here, the word of God says that we will suffer no more. In Revelations, it says there will be no more tears, no more sorrow, no more pain, no more suffering. And so I believe that he's sitting in the presence of my Father, because before Joseph passed away, just months before, I witnessed him giving his life to Christ and fully surrendering. And and I yeah. So it didn't stop me. It did really hurt me. It hurt me bad that my brother Joseph is gone, and I can never see him again till I get to heaven. But I'm still standing tall. I'm still glorifying my Father. I'm still praising my Father, and I'm still going to do as the Lord leads me to do. And so we go through hard things. We go through tough things. We go through things that we wish we would never have to go through. But I'm sitting here before you, sharing with you that we don't have to stay stuck in our past. We don't have to allow the things that have happened to us to keep us down. We could rise above, we could move forward with our life. And yes, I went off into the world. And trust me, I tried to numb the pain with drugs, and I tried to numb the pain with alcohol. That was the biggest thing that I struggled with, was alcohol. And I, thought I wanted to be because as a wife we're a representation of our husband, and so I wanted, my husband had gave up drinking long before I ever did, and I wanted to be a good representation of my husband. I wanted to represent him well. And so the one thing that I struggled with giving up, fully surrendering all, is my drinking. And here and there I would drink, and it wasn't until the Spirit really really dealt with my heart, and um, showed me that I didn't need that. It didn't breathe life into my life. It only, would cause me to be depressed and make me think of the past and the hurts and all that. And I couldn't heal, and I couldn't fully move forward. And God said, "You got to cut this out." And so that was another time in my life in which I had, fasted and prayed and sought the Lord, and He delivered me from drinking. And so He can deliver. He is the God of deliverance. He wants to deliver you. He doesn't just as he delivered me, he doesn't want us to be held down in bondage. And trust me, even though we try to numb our pain with drugs and alcohol and the things of the world, whether it's men, sex, whatever it is that we try to numb the pain with, it is only putting a band-aid over it. It doesn't truly heal that hurt. The pain is still there. And so for me, drinking just used to make it worse. And it wasn't until I fully surrendered it all to God. I fully gave my everything to Him, everything that, all my hurts, all my sorrows, my drinking, everything. I just said, Lord, work in and through me. Take this, take the desire, that He truly worked in and through me. And here I sit today, honored and humbled that He has given me the life that He has given me. And I just pray that that my life be a life that brings glory to Him. And so I pray that today, if you are going through um, a struggle today, whether it be abuse of some sort, or if you've been abused in your past, or if you've been adopted and you feel that rejection, or maybe you just feel inadequate because of everything that you've gone through in your life. I'm walking, talking testimony of what God could do in and through your life if you just surrender your life to Christ. If you fully surrender everything to Him, allowing Him to work in and through your life. I pray that, if you need somebody to talk to, that you will reach out to me, reach out to one of the pastors. Allow us to pray with you. Allow us to just share our heart with you. I promise you that God will bring you. As I said, there's no fulfillment in the things of the world, but there is 100% fulfillment in God. He will bring you the overwhelming sense of peace that you need. There's nothing can bring you the peace that the Father can bring you, and nothing can heal your broken heart the way the Father can. He restores and He replenishes, and He does far exceedingly more than you could ever imagine in your life. I just encourage you to open up your hearts and receive Jesus. Um, I love you guys. I thank you guys for allowing me. I thank you, Pastor Ken, for allowing me the time to be able to share my testimony. It's not easy to share, but I pray that in some way it helps somebody else and that it brings hope to somebody. God bless.